You ever notice how some people drift through social spaces like ghosts? They show up, they're friendly, they laugh at the jokes, but somehow they never quite belong. No team colors, no our people, no strong allegiance to a group, movement, fandom, ideology, or even a tight friend circle. And if you ask them where they fit, they'll shrug and say something like, I don't really do labels. Maybe that person is someone you know. Maybe it's you. You've probably felt it before. You're invited into a group chat, a community, a workplace culture, a social circle. And instead of relief, something tightens in your chest. Not fear exactly, more like a quiet resistance. A thought whispers, if I join, I'll have to become something I'm not. Why do some people refuse to belong anywhere? Not loudly, not rebelliously, just calmly, persistently, and almost instinctively. That's what we're unpacking today. Because behind this behavior isn't coldness or arrogance, it's a surprisingly complex inner psychology. Picture this. You're at a gathering. Everyone is bonding over shared interests, same jokes, same references, same remember when stories, and you're right there with them, smiling, nodding, contributing just enough to seem engaged. But internally, you're standing a few feet back, observing the scene like an anthropologist. This is the first type, the self-observer. These are people who live with a constant internal narrator. They don't just experience life, they watch themselves experiencing it. When groups form, something subtle happens. Instead of melting into the collective, they zoom out. They notice the social dynamics, the unspoken rules, the way people start to mirror each other. And once you see that, it's hard to unsee. Belonging requires a little bit of surrender, a willingness to stop analyzing and just be. But for the self-observer, belonging feels like losing perspective, like giving up the balcony seat for the stage and never quite trusting the script. If this resonates, you might recognize how quickly group enthusiasm feels performative, how chants, trends, and collective outrage feels slightly artificial. Not wrong, just strangely distant. You don't reject groups because you dislike people, you reject them because you can't stop watching them. Then there's another profile. This person has belonged before, deeply, maybe too deeply. They once wrapped their identity around a group, friends, a belief system, a workplace, a community. And when it ended, it didn't just hurt, it collapsed something inside them. This is the burned belonger. When a group falls apart, most people grieve the relationships. Burned belongers grieve the version of themselves that existed inside that group. The shared language, the inside jokes, the feeling of being understood without explanation. So now, when another group invites them in, their nervous system remembers. It says, careful, last time this cost you more than you expected. They keep one foot out the door. They stay friendly but unattached. They resist roles, titles, and we language, not because they're aloof, but because belonging once taught them how much there is to lose. If this is you, you might notice a pattern. You enjoy people most when there are no expectations, no loyalty tests, no pressure to be more involved. Freedom feels safer than closeness. But here's where it gets interesting. Some people don't refuse to belong because of fear or overthinking. They refuse because their identity is too fluid. Meet the unfixed self. These are people who change internally faster than groups can keep up. Their values evolve, their interests shift, their worldview updates quietly but constantly. So when a group forms around a shared identity, political, cultural, creative, it feels constraining almost immediately. Joining would mean freezing a version of themselves that already feels outdated. They think, if I belong here, I'll have to defend beliefs I might outgrow. I'll have to stay consistent for other people's comfort. And consistency, that feels like a cage. These individuals often feel misunderstood because from the outside, it looks like indecision. But inside, it's coherence. They are loyal to their internal evolution, not to external alignment. If this sounds familiar, you probably feel uneasy when people say, so you're the kind of person who... You want to interrupt and say, well, sometimes. Now, let's talk about a quieter, less obvious type. The autonomy protector. This person values independence the way others value connection. They associate groups with subtle obligations, replying on time, showing up emotionally, agreeing publicly, choosing sides. Even in healthy groups, there's an invisible tax, and autonomy protectors feel it immediately. They think, if I belong, my time won't fully be mine anymore. My thoughts won't either. So they keep their circles loose, their affiliations light, their exits easy. This doesn't mean they're selfish. In fact, many are deeply considerate. They just know how easily their inner world gets crowded. Belonging feels like noise seeping into a quiet room. Maybe you've noticed this in yourself. You enjoy people one-on-one, but groups drain you. You prefer open doors over locked commitments. You don't want to be claimed. But here's the twist most people miss. Refusing to belong is not always about detachment. Sometimes it's about depth. Many people who don't fit into groups are actually searching for something rarer. Relationships that don't require identity merging. Spaces where they can be fully themselves without being absorbed into a collective personality. They don't want a tribe, they want resonance. They're not antisocial, they're anti-flattening. And in the world that organizes people into categories, teams, labels, sides, this can feel quietly rebellious. Not loud rebellion, no protests, just a steady refusal to shrink complexity for the sake of belonging. So if you've ever felt like you're standing at the edge of every circle, not quite stepping in, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe your psychology is wired for independence, nuance, and internal consistency. Or maybe you're still healing, or still watching, or still becoming. The real question isn't why don't you belong anywhere, it's what kind of belonging would actually honor who you are. So, does one of these profiles fit you? Or do you recognize someone in your life a little more clearly now? If this stirred something, let it linger. And if you want to explore more of these quiet, under-discussed corners of human behavior, you know where to find us. Sometimes, not belonging is the most honest place to start.